Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's start. So in your category two, the first question is what is n layer architecture, right? So
Yeah.
okay, so before I go to the n layer architecture, okay, I want to explain the
Mm.
solid principle. Have you heard about solid principles?
Yeah, I'd heard once, yeah.
Yeah, so
Don't
solid
remember.
principle I will suggest like you'll go through in
Mm.
internet and go through the Java code, right? Actual code,
Mm.
how the single responsibility can be done. I'll just little bit overview, I'll cover it because when
Mm.
I'll go for entire architecture, I'll use some of the terms, right? So solid
Okay.
principle is one of the very important principle in our software architecture or software design, right? So in software we
Mm.
have two things. One is called principles, right? Principles means whenever you are writing code, if you have a good grasp of principle, you can write a good code, right? The person who is
Mm.
doing the code review, he can identify those flaws, right? If he is good in
Mm.
principle. So one of the principle is called the solid principle. And then in software we have the architecture, right? Architecture is
Mm.
kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
a experience, right? Component, is this component good or bad, or I have some other component, okay, which will fit. So that's called architecture. But principle is same for everyone, okay? So solid principle is same for Java, .NET, because these are the principle don't change on languages, right? It's a
Yeah.
universal. So when you have good grasp, it's come through practice, right? So in the single responsibility principle, the solid principle is stand for the single responsibility, right? So single
Mm.
responsibility means whenever you're writing any class or whenever you're writing any functions, right, we have to make sure that particular class or that particular method is doing only one task, right? Suppose if you
Mm.
have one add method, that add method will do only the sum, right? If you have
Mm.
any print logic example, you need to create
Mm.
another method to print it, okay, something like
Mm.
that. Suppose you have a employee class, so employee class will be having only details about the employee, right? You will not
Mm.
store his account details there. For account, you will
Mm.
create another account class. For credit, you will
Mm.
create one more credit class, like that. Single
Mm.
responsibility, okay? So the people will do mistake when you go for a maintenance kind of project, right? So when you are
Mm.
starting as a scratch project, right, you will implement
Mm.
all these good principles, right? Now this project is
Mm.
going for maintenance. Okay, suppose somebody
Mm.
else developed it, now it came to you for the maintenance. So in maintenance, when you do the bug fixing, all right, so people always do the
Mm.
patching kind of thing. Okay, so all these responsibility go in loop, correct? So they will
Mm.
say, okay, let's add one more parameter, right? So I'll create another function for one parameter because only defect is for this function, right? And let's add that particular one parameter. So once you put another parameter, that function is doing dual task now, right? So single responsibility is
Mm.
broken. Okay, so these are the
Yeah.
general example what we see when people are work when I do the code review and all those things, right? Then second one is
Mm.
the open close principle, right? So the class should be
Mm.
open for extension but closed for the modification, and people generally misuse this one, right? So what they are saying is
Mm.
when you have creating a classes, right? We always follow the
Mm.
single responsibilities, right? Suppose if you go for, have you done through all those things? What is inheritance? What is composition?
Mm.
All those
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
suppose
yeah.
there is one generic class, and from the generic class you are creating two child classes, right? So what you are doing
Mm.
is you are extending. That is called extension, right? So you're
Mm.
extending that. So always we need to create a class such a way that we don't break that class. Okay. If you want something, you inherit that and add some new property. But again, when the code is going for maintenance, not proper code review done, people keep on adding in the single class itself, right? Why to create another
Mm.
class? Another class means another file, another entity. So many headaches are there. Let's add for one property. Why to do that? People generally do all those things. Okay.
Mm.
Then these are the main two I will cover. These are the things is not required in our architecture. That's why I'm not covering. You can go through it. This is again dependency injection is called the IOC, right? And list of sufficient principle stand for that inheritance, right? It is saying like
Mm.
the same child class can be replaced with the parent one, right? And interface segregation is a little bit of single responsibility only. That means the work should be segregated, means divided in multiple interfaces, different interfaces. Okay.
Mm.
So maybe the single
Mm.
response. Now let's come about the entire. So entire basically people use the three tier architecture. This is a very common architecture. Everybody use it. Okay, three tier
Kushik, I
architecture.
want to
Mm.
ask you one thing.
Mm,
Like while coding only,
mm,
while fixing one bug, same thing regarding this solid principle only. I
mm,
think I
mm,
mean don't know.
mm,
So there was a utility class which was doing a lot of things.
mm,
Okay,
mm.
it does a lot of things. Then our lead was telling there should not be more than 250 lines or something in one
Correct,
class.
correct.
Java.
Mm, mm,
So, but that utility is doing some. It has some responsibility,
mm.
and it is
So, yes, I got
doing.
your point. So, suppose that
Mm,
utility has a responsibility, you need to think about that how many responsibility he's doing it, right? So, in the
mm,
250 line of code, maybe you can add two or three responsibilities, but better you can create one responsibility. So, your line of code will be maybe 30, 40. So, now suppose you have one big class, when you break it, you will have six classes. That is okay. Six different file will be
yes.
created, and each one file will do some one task, maybe one function, right? So like that, you have to divide
Mm,
the whole thing in a class. Inside the class, you have to divide in a function, right? So maybe how we can handle this one, you have to create one interface, correct? So the interface will be
yeah.
having all those responsibilities. Now you will create class and you will inherit it, and each class you will write only one function method, right? And now when you use it, you
Mm,
will use this again a microservice kind of thing. One object, one service will do only one task at a time, right?
mm.
Something like that.
Yeah, and it was doing. I mean, like for example, if I say it was like Excel utility, for
Mm-hmm.
example,
Mm-hmm.
okay, get row, get cell,
Mm-hmm.
check cell not null,
Mm-hmm.
check row not null, something like that. There
Mm-hmm.
are specific function only. One
Mm-hmm.
function only does each method.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, there are n number of methods which are
Mm.
exceeding 250 lines.
Correct.
So in that case, what we have to do?
We have to break
Mm,
it in two part, right? See, sometimes you
mm,
should not be so tough, right? Suppose in the
mm,
organization level they say 250, because yeah, I understand your
mm,
problem. You maybe your class name is
mm.
called Excel utility. So in this class you have all the Excel related function. Suppose you
Yeah,
have a
right.
one functionality called Excel download and PDF download. You created two
Mm,
different class, Excel utility,
yeah,
PDF. You did it properly,
yeah,
right? But in the
yeah,
organization level they told 250, and within 250
yeah.
line you cannot write all the functionality for Excel, right? So what is
Right,
the option
yeah.
you have? Obviously you have to break something in two part, right? Maybe give a different
Mm,
name, Excel utility something else, and Excel utility some. So to divide this,
okay.
because we have 250 rules, but here you are following the single responsibility correctly, because Excel utility
Mm,
only does, because Excel utility is a class. Inside that you have a different function, right? Row editing
yeah,
one function, example, right?
yeah.
Creating new column one function. So function level
Mm,
you are following it, but obviously when you add it, it will be more than 250. But Excel has lot of functionality, right? Nothing you can do on
yeah.
that. So it's depend on the
Mm,
rules what organization is setting up, and again on top of the person who is reviewing it. Some people can give exception, right? Yes, I see this
yeah,
single response tab, let it be an exception, something like that, right? So that's
okay,
how you have
okay,
to
got it.
handle it.
Yeah, yeah, got it. Okay.
Okay, so that entire architecture actually the synonym for the three-tier architecture. So why we are doing
Mm,
three-tier architecture? You can, from the picture itself you can see we are dividing the responsibilities, right? So basically
mm,
three normal three-tier architecture people generally say. If in the interview and all, architecture question, first question, what you worked? I worked on three-tier architecture. Simple answer that is, right? So first one is
mm,
called the presentation layer, and they are saying this is a client. Okay. Second one is the
mm,
business layer, and third one is the data layer. This is the three-tier
mm,
architecture. So the presentation layer is only bothered about displaying part. In a web application, HTML, JavaScript, CSS. In a desktop application, the desktop related events, desktop related UI, all those things coming under presentation. So all the presentation related work or code should be present in presentation layer. Then application layer or
mm,
business layer or the business related rules. Okay, but nowadays in a simple application what it does is people do it all the rules they put it in the presentation layer itself, and business layer is kind of a handshake. It get the data,
mm,
pass it to that data layer, get the data layer from
mm,
here, pass it to. That's how people do it, but that's a bad architecture. What
mm,
people does, because here they are saying like it's very easy to write business logic, right? So that's how you
mm,
will grow as an architect, right? When you can remove those things and move it in the second bucket. That's how the advanced
mm,
concept is. Because I know here it is very easy. See, all these rules is created to make the code mental ability good, right? But
mm,
difficult to write. Okay. So
yeah.
slowly when you can see, yes, I am improving, that means you are able to identify which particular code is for presentation layer, which particular code is for the business layer, and you are moving it. correct?
mm,
So this is an entire architecture is nothing but three-tier architecture. Okay. Now,
mm,
what why people use the three-tier architecture? Okay, then current hot topic is the microservice. Microservice I already touched in the last session, but again I'll go there. So they generally use this one monolithic and microservice. In between, entire
mm,
architecture is there because see the
mm,
microservice maybe came for 4 years or 5 years back, right? Before that,
mm,
everybody was using the three-tier architecture. Still, many people use three-tier architecture because three-tier architecture is simple to create. Okay, they generally
yeah,
avoid the monolithic. But suppose the application
mm,
is for 10 or 15 years old, right? You can see the
mm,
monolithic application. What is the monolithic? Means in the single box itself you are putting everything. That means you are
mm,
breaking those single responsibility principle, right? So what is the benefit
yeah,
of doing that one? Benefit of doing this is one benefit is you have one server that is enough. In the single
mm,
server itself you are able to do everything, right? So
mm,
cost is less, okay, and in the single and the line of code will be less, right? Because example, not single class, monolithic means the class box will be one but different class, but I'm giving example class level. In single class itself you are putting all the functions, right? So obviously there will be one function, more number of lines codes will be more, but one, right? So that's the monolithic application. And database will be different. Obviously database you cannot put server, right? So database will be like SQL Server, Oracle, and all your code. So JSP HTML is nothing but your presentation layer. Then Spring Data ORM is your ORM tool, and Spring services are different business logic. So you are putting in a single box. Okay, so this is called the monolithic application, and this is very bad. Nowadays nobody use it. Why? Because suppose there is a small bug in the HTML or JSP file, right? The whole application is getting down because of that, correct? Or any particular
mm,
exception happen, whole box is going down, or more
mm,
loads are there, then one box will not be enough to handle the loads, right? You cannot replicate this. That's why this is called a monolithic application. It's very difficult, and small changes will take so much time to go to the production, right? One bug came, example, the bug is there in
mm,
HTML or JSP. You have to fix that bug. You have to build the whole code. Here there is no change for Spring Data or ORM. ORM is object relational model. ORM, but still you have to build the whole code, and then you have to push the code to the production, right? Production deployment. So maybe once in a month or twice in a month deployment will be there, right? Because small change means you have to do, the tester need to do thorough testing, because how the
mm,
tester will know that you have done fixing on the HTML? No, because for tester it's a black box. You touch this one, I have to test the whole functionality, right? So that's why it will take more time. Now if I divide this one in multiple parts, and tester can test this particular box separately, this one separately, and this one separately, then I can say, boss, I did not do any changes on these two boxes, so no need to test. You need to only test in this box, right? So they can test it. That's why the entire architecture came into the picture. We are breaking this thing in different layer, right? So that it will be faster to deploy, faster to test, and we can deploy to a different box, right? Suppose this one I put in a separate box, this one I put in a separate box, and database also I'm breaking. Maybe that time I was storing all the data in single database. Now I create a different database. But this whole thing I'll say as a data layer, business layer, and presentation layer. Concept wise I'm telling, correct? So this is called the three-tier architecture, which people are still using it, right? And then the microservice concept came into the picture. Micro means the small thing, right? So in the microservice, what we are trying to say is the presentation layer is gone. That is one, still one. But in this
mm,
application or business layer, what are the business functionalities are there, right? I'll create a
mm,
small service. So those small service is independent. I can deploy only that specific small service to a box, means in a server,
mm,
right? Think about the e-commerce. That's the easier to understand. That's why people generally go for e-commerce website, right? So in e-commerce website, lot of functionalities will be there, right? One is the cart management, one is the product management, one is the payment service, one is the login, right? So all these the different
mm,
service, and each one will call a microservice. Login service, cart management
mm,
service, right? Product management service, and for each
mm,
service they will create a different database. So only login related data will be stored in the login database, user ID, password, account information. Then they will have
mm,
one more database called product. So all the product
mm,
information will be stored there, and product service will like this. Product service will only talk to the database. Okay, so this is called a
mm,
so they can ask this question generally. So in the microservice architecture, it is required that each service will be having different database. Microservice architectures say that yes, that is good way of doing it. Each service should talk to a different database, but in general what they do, they will create the services in different, but they will always connect to a single database. Because the reason is very simple. These codes are Java code, right? So these Java codes and all are
mm,
evolving. Like before it was monolithic, then entire, then microservices, right? So these codes are evolving, and Spring framework and all those through, they are able to write the microservices. But database is the legacy one, right? Suppose the bank application, suppose the SBI
mm,
bank or HDFC bank, that's a very old bank. Suppose previously they have the monolithic application, but database, they have a single database where whole data sits. They come up, convert it to entire application. Still data is sitting in one database because data is huge, right? And they divide the web
mm,
server, web logic, and business logic. Now they come up with the microservice. Still data is sitting in one database, right? Because database they are not
mm,
breaking is very difficult task, right? So in microservice architecture
mm,
is depend. Suppose you are doing the scratch development as a greenfield, right? Scratch development they call it greenfield and brownfield. These two concepts are there. Greenfield development means you generally doing a fresh. So that time you have all the luxury, right? You can create microservices, you
mm,
can create in number of databases, you put proper structure. But think about there is already
mm,
your existing application, and customer is saying, hey, I need to convert to my microservice. So what they will do, they don't touch the database, right? Because database has a relational database basically, so they don't touch it, they keep it as it is. Business functions and all, they create a small service and create a microservice architecture. Clear?
yeah,
So
understood.
that's how it is going. I'm just giving you the roadmap how it's came microservice, what
Mm,
happened in general, right? See, in
mm,
theory part, they can say anything. That's why the architect come into the picture, right? A
mm,
developer who just read the microservice, he will say to the bank, I know it's not at all possible, right? I need to break your database and I have to make a small
mm,
database. So everything is data integrity, everything all. Right? The architect come into the picture. He say, yes, we can do that. We'll keep it in one database. We'll do something in the service level so that each service can talk to a different way, right? So those are coming from the
mm,
experience how they will divide, and then CI/CD always will be there on top of that, right? The CI/CD is this one, deployment and integration, right? So this is the
mm.
microservice architecture. Yeah. So your question was
Okay.
more of a inline architecture, but I covered all what is
Mm.
there in the web as of now. Hmm. Because in
So API
microservice
gateway is
hmm.
nothing but REST only, is it?
Yeah, API gateway will come there. So API gateway, what is happening is in the microservice, right? What happening? Suppose, okay, let's discuss in the microservice architecture where the UI sits. UI is basically now a Angular, right, or a
Mm-hmm.
React,
Yeah,
right? React application,
yeah,
Angular application. So think about this
yeah.
website, the Amazon website I created in Angular, correct? And in
Mm,
this microservice, I have one service called product service. Okay, and I have
mm,
one service called cart service. So product service having the product information. So in my Angular application, I search the product, right? So whenever I search the
mm,
product, which service I need to hit? I need to hit product service, because product service will
mm.
give me the product information. Now whenever I click on the add to cart button, I need to call to the cart service. Correct.
Yeah.
So like that, when I
Mm,
go to the payment one, I need to go to the payment service. So now
mm,
my Angular application need to know all these service URLs or service address, right?
mm,
Okay, this is the URL for product service, and it will be so much tightly coupled, right? Suppose
mm,
tomorrow I am changing the URL, correct? Product
yeah,
service, due to some reason I am changing it, I have to change the Angular code. Okay, so to
yeah.
remove this dependency, they put some gateway means gate in between,
Mm,
that is called the
mm,
API gateway. Okay, so the Angular
mm,
will call this API gateway. Angular will only know one URL, API gateway
mm,
URL. And API gateway URL, based on the request, internally it will call, right? So he
mm,
is creating a wrapper in between. What is
mm,
changing in this? My Angular code is not able to visible it, right? So the dependencies are
mm,
decrease. So the
mm,
tightly coupled thing I'm breaking through API gateway. That is one of the benefit of the API gateway. There is other options are also there. One is called the what is that called? Mm, I forget the name. Okay, denial of service, right? DOS, denial of
mm,
service. That is one more functionality API gateway provide. So what is the denial of service? Is suppose Amazon will be having those, right? So if you debug the Amazon code in the browser F12, you can figure it out some URLs. Okay, by debugging the code, maybe you can figure it out. Okay, this is the URL for the API gateway. So you wrote your own program. Okay, one C program or Java program, and you want to hit that particular URL 1 lakh time per second. There are some tools are available. Okay,
mm,
you can run the tool and it will hit. So what is your aim? Is your aim is I will make the Amazon server down, right? How to make the server
mm,
down? You put more load, right? So what the denial
mm,
service request does is it has the mechanism. It will keep on checking that from a particular IP address, if in particular second more than 5 or 10 record is coming, block that one.
mm,
Correct. So
mm,
it will not affecting other the real user who is don't doing this
mm,
bad thing, right? So that is like that
mm,
API gateway is a wrapper here. You can do lot of security thing, lot of thing on the API gateway. It depends on the product,
mm,
right? Azure has one API gateway. Your Nginx, right? Nginx, that is one API gateway. Like so, it has many functionalities basically.
mm. Okay, got it.
So the logic is you are putting on gate all as for the security reason, right? That's
Mm,
how the encapsulation comes, right? In OOPS concept, encapsulation. You are encapsulating. You are not exposing your internal URL because each service will be having internal URL, right?
mm,
Hmm? Then in the Java, when you learn the Spring Boot and all that time, there is one more concept is called service discovery. Service discovery means here I'm talking about the each box in one service. Think about the Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes AKS, Kubernetes services. One particular product service will be different kubelet. Kube is nothing but the small service. Because based on the
mm,
load, right? I am thinking many people are searching my product in Amazon, right? So the product service is very heavy now, right? So I need 100 instance of that. So Kubernetes, I can configure those. I need 100, 200 based on loads, right? So now each Kubernetes
mm,
instant will be one service, right? So now if you see, I need to configure those service in Angular, how difficult it would be, right? How do I know 100 service or 200 service or 300 services running? Because those are dynamic. If load increase, Kubernetes automatically increase those service instead. If load decrease, Kubernetes automatically kill those. So the resources are safe, right? So the number of service URL is dependent dynamic. I cannot hard code it my Angular application, right? So they have a called service
mm.
discovery, right? So Angular
Yeah.
application will look to the table. That table will be having the fresh URLs. Whenever the new service created, they will add that URL in that. I'm talking in general term to make you understand, but in complex it is more.
Mm,
Okay, not a table, something else.
mm.
Okay, so it will be
Yeah.
table structure. They will add it, and your Angular will keep on looking there. So I'm creating one middle kind of thing, which is called a service discovery. Okay, so these are all
Mm,
web concepts. A lot of concepts are there. If I explain in single day,
mm.
you will not be able to understand. Okay, so slowly
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
get when I go through.
Mm,
So
yeah,
now API gateway is clear, right? What is the purpose of
yeah.
API gateway?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, understood. Yeah.
Okay. Any question on microservices which you heard about any word which you are not aware of? So API gateway is one. I understood. That's why you tell it. Anything
Mm.
else?
No,
CI/CD you
nothing.
know, right? Then
Yes,
DDL,
yes.
DML. These are called DDL is data definition language. DML is data manipulation. These are the DML operations,
Uh,
right? The DB team handle it, and CI/CD code base going on build something like that. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so
Understood.
CI/CD also I'm not sure you put it in the category or not. Maybe at the end we'll cover it if CI/CD. Okay, what the CI/CD
Mm.
all about. Okay.
Yeah.
So this microservice only I was explaining to you, right? This one catalog service,
Mm.
different DB. So this is actual the microservice architecture. Sometimes the whole can be 1 DB. Okay, 1 DB is easier. Why they will maintain 1 DB? Because they want to utilize the RDBMS concept, means relational database. That means in the
Mm.
shopping cart, the product which you are adding that should be present in product table. So shopping cart table, product table will be having the primary key foreign key relationship, right? So those are not
Mm.
possible when you are breaking the data in different DB. Okay, because in
Mm.
banking application RDBMS used more relational databases.
Mm.
So that could be the one
Yeah.
reason they want to make a single database, right? Suppose in a
Mm-hmm.
there is no RDBMS, the object oriented, right? We already learned last classes that object means
Mm-hmm.
data block. So in object there is no relationship. You can divide as many as database you want, right? That's why the
Mm-hmm.
MongoDB come into the picture. All is based on the scenarios, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the
Yeah.
microservice architecture. Okay, now let's see what we have here. Then
In
what
this
is
DB,
hmm,
I have one question there. So suppose
hmm,
if DB has too many records,
hmm,
like some GBs of or terabytes of record.
okay,
So querying and getting result will take time,
correct.
is it? Or if we scatter to different DBs, then time
See,
consumption will be
okay.
less.
So those are
That
the
is
DB. Yeah. So those are the DBA concept. Okay. It's depend on,
okay.
first of all you have to see what kind of database it is. Eh? Suppose it's a
Okay.
RDBMS, that means SQL Server and Oracle. Okay. First of all,
Mm,
you have to obviously dividing the DB is more because you are reducing the data. In general concept
mm,
itself, when you reduce the data, it will be faster. Correct. But that option
yeah.
will not be available for banking kind of application. Okay. So you have
Mm,
to now tuning. That's called the database tuning. So now you have to tune the
mm,
database so that with the existing database itself, it will load fast, right? So couple of options
mm,
DBA could have is first, suppose the transaction table has more data, okay, and
mm,
they want to keep only last 100 days of data, so they want to reduce the data,
mm,
basically one of the option, and the rest of
mm,
the days data they will put in the archive table, okay, and in the service
mhm,
call they will configure like that. If the data is between 100 days, it will go to this table. If data is more, it will go to another table. That is one way of doing it. Second, they
mhm,
will they have a profiler for the queries. They will see
mhm,
why this query is taking more time, okay. So the
mhm,
easy solution what you have, what they have it, creating the cluster index, right? In DB you have two kind of
yeah.
index called cluster index and non-cluster index. When you are querying the
Mhm,
table, if you use cluster index, it will faster, okay. So those are the mechanism SQL Server Oracle have it internally. That's why they came up with all
mhm,
those logic. So you need to see, okay, so maximum query is using my account ID to get the account details. I need to put account ID in cluster index, okay. They have a comment,
mhm,
create table, create cluster index, something like that. So when they put it, you will see
mhm,
the query performance has increased, right? That is one way of doing it,
yeah.
right? Second, they will check the query again, and they will. There are a couple of logics are there. Suppose some cursors are used. The cursor is bad. Okay, last option you have to go for cursor. Cursor take most time. Then they will check. Okay, where condition or condition. So they will review the queries, right? Or the order of the
Mhm,
query. Suppose which is faster, join condition or the child record, right? So they will check
mhm.
all those things, and like that you can they can improve the performance, correct. So here
Okay.
they have the knowledge of the database queries, how the database works and all those stuff.
Mhm. So why I asked because there was one issue
Uh-huh.
like our queries when too many queries are fired to Druid, our
Uh-huh.
database,
Uh-huh.
it was becoming too slow and unresponsive.
Correct. So you
So
have to
then,
see like in the root side, you have to see the configurations, right? Suppose SQL
mm,
Server, I generally work on more SQL and Oracle. That's why giving example. SQL Server has a
mm,
standard, right? If you go for the
mm,
enterprise editions SQL Server, in one particular
mm,
second, it can only handle 100 kind of connections, right? So if the
mm,
connections are more, obviously it will be down because again it's a thread concept, right? So some thread they have to
mm,
stop it to execute others, right? When the load is more, correct?
mm,
So you have to
yeah,
see all those things. Maybe root has a configuration. You can increase the number of count of connections, right? Continuous connection at a
yeah,
time, right? Or maybe the
yeah,
cache also we can.
we,
So each database has a different structure based on the, and
yeah,
they have the specification mentioned. If happen this, you can improve like this, right? Something like that.
yeah, yeah. So our DevOps team was telling that one of the query was returning some 2.5 GB of data,
See, that's wrong, right?
something like that. So that is what is making slow and something. So that discuss then our manager and we were discussing. He was telling like why can't we properly modular the data? Do we need Druid or
Correct.
do we need some other database, multiple instances, modularing the data in proper
Yes.
way or something like
Correct.
that?
Correct.
So actually I couldn't answer it.
Yeah, so what
And
you have to do is in that particular scenario, first you have to get the data downloaded and analyze the data. Suppose if you see,
Yes.
that's called your RDBMS concept, normalization, denormalization, right? If you see that
Mm-hmm.
particular data itself, example, I'm giving banking example. You have the user data,
Mm-hmm.
you have the account data. Then obviously you can break those data, right? You can break the relationship. Once you break the
Mm-hmm.
relationship, you are half. You are making the data half, right? You are reducing the
Mm-hmm.
data. Then you can create two different services, right? One service will query user data and one service will call the account data. Once both the data is
Mm-hmm.
available, another service will merge it and do your logic, whatever it is, right? So the database
Will
dependence
it
you are
take
reducing.
more time
Hmm?
for that? Time in terms of time, will it increase time to return the
No,
result?
no,
Merging everything
no, it will not take more time because now the two query will run parallel, right?
parallel. Yeah.
Right, so that is faster because
Mm-hmm.
our computers are fast now. That's why, right? They can increase the
Mm-hmm.
server. They have the DevOps team has that option, right? Increase the server configuration. So those two will run in the parallel. And the
Mm-hmm.
integration one is depend on your business case, what kind of integration you are doing once you get all the data available, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that, you have to design
Okay.
it based on the scenarios.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Got it. Understood.
Hmm.
So there will be some key kind of thing
Correct.
to link to databases
Obviously,
and
you
fetch the
need some
data
relationship.
and
Now,
merge
object
it.
ID or some
Yeah.
IDs will be there. Otherwise, how do you figure
Okay.
it out? Right?
The merging part will be done by database only, is it?
No, merging you can do in
Right.
your Java service class also, right? It's depend on that, right?
Service class.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
Suppose if you ask me in the
Understood.
SQL server, I can do in store procedures. Or if you don't want,
Mm.
MongoDB kind of thing, you can do in the service class size. It's depend on the structure.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Okay, so then second question you have is called the frontier middle tier EIS. This one I explain. What is EIS? EIS nothing but I covered here. EIS the full form is Enterprise Information System. Means whatever database is one EIS, right? Message broker is one EIS. From where the data is coming, that they are in the Java world, they are calling as EIS. And in normal term is called a data, right? A data
Mm-hmm.
layer. And to connect it, you need a resource adapter. So what is the resource adapter? Means same thing. You have plug point to charge your mobile, you need adapter, right? Same thing. If you
Mm-hmm.
have a Oracle database, you need the Oracle adapter to get the data. What is that? JDBC, right? In Java, you have
Yeah.
Java database connectivity that has different adapters. One connect for Oracle, SQL Server, MongoDB, Druid. They have different adapters. So
Mm-hmm.
the adapter will fit here, and you can keep on getting the data from any EIS. Right? If the EIS change,
Mm-hmm.
adapter will also change, right? Because with the Oracle
Mm-hmm.
adapter, you cannot connect to SQL Server or you cannot connect to message, right? So that is nothing but the EIS. EIS stand for that one data layer basically. So frontier is the
Mm-hmm.
presentation layer, business layer, and data layer.
Okay.
That is the
Mm-hmm.
concept. Okay? It's all about the
Okay.
architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Then J2E service will come little late. Okay, let's configure the
Mm-hmm.
HTTP and HTTP because I'm just covering the web part first. Okay, then we'll go details.
Mm-hmm.
HTTP and HTTPS. What do you think the difference between HTTP and HTTPS?
Yeah, I just seen while googling only. It's HTTPS. It provides security is what I saw. Apart from that, I don't know anything else.
Okay.
It is secure connection. That is
Yeah.
what it.
What is the full form of HTTP?
Hypertext transfer protocol.
Yes, hypertext transfer protocol, right? So in the web,
Yeah.
whatever data we with in the browser, right? So in the
Mm-hmm.
browser, when you type it, right, we are calling some
Mm-hmm.
servers and all, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
protocol means nothing but a rule, right? Everything goes for
Mm-hmm.
rules, right? So that is not that
Yep.
is they call as a protocol. So the name they have
Mm-hmm.
given this one is the hypertext transfer protocol, right? And when it
Mm-hmm.
is secure, right? That time we use
Mm-hmm.
basically the HTTPS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's try to understand little bit of this one. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
first, do you have any idea how the internet works?
Yeah, I think the client server explained the entire. Maybe that is the what I know. I know.
So in very high level, this is what will happen. Okay, actually I downloaded all this so that I can explain. So in very high level, what happened? This is the browser, this is the mobile screen, or this is the
Mm-hmm.
internet browser, right? So you put the address here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
www.google.com, right? So this goes to a called DNS. So here, this thing no need to
Mm-hmm.
know. This is too much details. So basically, it will go to a
Mm-hmm.
DNS server. Okay, so DNS server will be having the mapping. The domain name, that's what you, when you go for any new website booking and all, you can see the domain register, right? So when you register a domain,
Yeah.
they will register that on a DNS server, DNS resolver they say.
Mhm.
So in the DNS server they will be having, okay, www.google.com means this IP address, right? Even you can put that
Mhm.
IP address here, it will work, okay? So people
Mhm.
generally know that's the domain name. So the domain name convert to
Mhm.
the IP address, right? So once
Yeah.
your browser receive the IP address, he knows where he need to go. The IP
Mhm.
address is nothing but the location of the server. Then it will go to the
Mhm.
server and it will keep on connecting the data. So this data
Mhm.
move between the server and client through HTTP protocol.
Mhm.
Clear? This is what these things work. The our internet
Yeah.
basically. This thing is too much in
Mhm.
details. We will not go there. Okay. Now
Mhm.
where is the HTTP? Yeah. So this is the HTTP and HTTPS basically. So HTTP
Mhm.
is, it is a normal plain text. Whatever data is happening, suppose in your web browser there is a login form. Okay, Facebook login
Mhm.
form. You put the user
Mhm.
ID and password and click on submit button, right? So when it's a HTTP, that normal your plain text user ID password going through the network, right? It goes through the
Mhm.
network to the Facebook server and then get the IP address, and on that server he is sending the data. So those datas are
Mhm.
normal text. Anybody can intercept on these particular networks, right? They have the software, they
Mhm.
can look to the network and they can grab the data. Okay, his user ID password is this, right? So that's why it is called
Mhm.
less secure. Okay. In HTTPS, what happened here is called the SSL, right? And
Mhm.
basically they say as a TLS slash SSL. So TLS is the transport layer security and SSL is stand for the secure socket layer. Okay? Those are the security level protocols. So they implement that, so the data is now in not in normal text. It is in the encrypted text. Encrypted text you saw,
Mhm.
right? It's a that
Mhm.
alphabet number kind of combination. Nobody understand what is that, right? So now if
Yeah.
he try to see the data, he will see that encrypted data, right? So the encrypted
Yeah.
data he will not be able to understand what is this user ID and what is this password. So that is basically
Mhm.
difference between HTTP and HTTPS. How the HTTPS work, we'll cover a little bit so that you have idea. Okay.
Mhm.
So this is the
Yeah.
basic difference. Now by default, as of now, all these browsers support HTTPS, right? They have the inbuilt
Mhm.
function now. If you open normal HTTP, you can see in the top section, not secure. Okay. So these are called the
Mhm.
security enhancement browsers are doing, right? So in browser you have one called course, right? uh, Called
Mhm.
cross origin resource, something like that error. We will cover that when we'll cover the API. So those are the inbuilt
Mhm.
security browser habit to secure
Mhm.
the user. I'm using the Chrome browser, right? So Chrome browser is securing my local laptop. Okay. So that's why they have all those functionality. HTTP will show, hey, this is not secure, it's highlighting this particular thing. Now all banking maximum sites now use HTTPS now. Okay, HTTP very less, right?
Mhm.
Because by default they are
Mhm.
all the domain server providing HTTPS is cheap only. Okay, so here they are
Mhm.
using the concept is called the encryption. Okay, so in encryption
Mhm.
we have two kind of encryption. One is called symmetric encryption, one is called asymmetric encryption. Are you aware of that?
No, no, I don't know.
Okay, so this is what the encryption works, right? So this is my normal text. Think about the user ID password. And encryption has
Mhm.
algorithm. People created normal algorithm. If you ask me the simple
Mhm.
algorithm, it's called base 64 encoding. There is
Mhm.
one more algorithm also, right? So in your Java
Yeah.
also, every language has base 64 encoding. You take one normal string, use base 64
Mhm.
encoding, it will convert like this. Okay, so base 64
Mhm.
encoding or normal asymmetric encryption is need a encryption key. So we get this
Mhm.
text with the key, it convert it to this kind of encrypted text. Now encrypted text to decrypt, this is called encryption, this is called decryption. So to decrypt this
Mhm.
data you need key, these two keys are same. Clear?
Yeah.
That's why it's called symmetric, means both the keys are same.
Mhm.
Correct? So that's why the
Yeah.
symmetric encryption happen. This is a less secure. Whoever has the
Mhm.
key, he can decrypt it.
Yeah.
Correct?
Decrypt. Yeah. Yeah.
So what could be the simple scenarios? Simple scenarios means, example, you are calling some APIs. APIs call through URL, right? So you are saying
Yeah.
at the end of the URL, I'll pass some data. Maybe I'll pass my
Mm-hmm.
user ID 5. But that user ID is equal to 5, I'll not send as a plain text. If somebody see in my browser window and all, so they should not be understand. I will do the normal encryption through this key. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and in the server side, when you receive it, you have this key. Take this key so that you can decrypt it. It's a simple encryption.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever is getting it, he can decrypt. So then,
Yeah.
general example would be what, suppose in our WhatsApps, right? In the WhatsApp message, you can see it's a end-to-end encrypted. So they use symmetry, right? Because you have one key and your WhatsApp will be having key. So these are secured in a single key. Same other people
Mm-hmm.
and server. So server will be having copy for each one. So this is called a simple one. File encryption, right? You have the bit locker. In my laptop, office laptop, I have a bit locker. So bit locker is what? Bit locker is the encrypting your hard drive's data. Single key.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So these are all example of the symmetric key. You have key, you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay? And then another is called the asymmetric. This is the bigger one people are using for the asymmetric. So in the asymmetric encryption, we have two concepts: public key and private key. So this asymmetric encryption is used in the HTTPS flow, not the symmetric one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how this thing happen is, in this, the public key will be having the client will be having the public key. Okay, and the server will be having the private key. So this key only server knows, right? And all the client will be having public key. Okay, so through public key, the client will encrypt the data, right? Because in the client browser, you are putting user ID password. Now the client need to send it to the Facebook server, right? So before he sending, he has a public. This public key knows by everyone. So everyone can encrypt it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it will be encrypted. Now in between, if some thief want to grab this data, he cannot decrypt, because he need to decrypt, you need the private key. So the encryption need public key, decryption need private key. He don't have the private key. He has the public key because this is publicly available in the domain somewhere. So he have it. He can use for encryption, but he cannot do the decryption, right? Only decryption done by the server, correct? So you can
Yeah.
ask, he can do the reverse engineering, right? He will take some text, random text, and use the key and see it is creating the same cipher text, right? That way you can figure it out. Okay, he take the word called dog, and he have the public key, he encrypt it, match the cipher. No, it's not matching, so it's not dog. Cat, right? Correct. He can do that reverse
Yeah.
engineering, but that is also not possible, because in symmetric key they have the mechanism RSA. RSA token you have heard for, right? RSA token.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
RSA is three scientists, I think, Reverse Samir or some Alderman, some name is there. They created that algorithm for asymmetric. It's very difficult to do the reverse engineering. If you put supercomputer also, it will take hundred of years to come up with the correct one, right? So through encryption
Yeah.
decryption, you are that called brute force attack. You have heard about that, right? So brute force attack means, suppose in your ATM card, right? ATM card has four code, right, for pin number. So to break the four pin number, how many numbers of trial is required? 9999, right?
Yeah.
9999 combination. If somebody allow me to enter, I can easily figure it out what is your pin number, right? But it blocks for 3.
Yeah.
Once you put 3 wrong, it's blocked, because this is called brute force attack, right? So if I don't block
Yeah.
it, then is after 9990 somebody will know my number, right? So this is, I'm
Yeah.
blocking the brute force. Same thing here. To block the brute force attack, they are making the algorithm so tough that if you use supercomputer also, it will take a lot of time. So basically, it's impossible to decrypt. Clear? Is near to impossible. The general term says near to impossible. Okay, so this is how the asymmetric encryption decryption works, and this is how the HTTPS also works. So when you are deploying some code, server code in the server has the option for the key. They don't say key, it's a certificate. You have to install the certificate.
Mhm.
So that certificate is called private. It has the private key. And they will create one public certificate and it will be available to the domain. So that's why you can click on verify. Thus the public certificate will be verified. Okay, so what would be the example of this asymmetric key? One is obviously our HTTPS, right? Can you give another example? We generally use this one. I think you also use it. Can you give one example for asymmetric, public private?
In our this one we use Microsoft Authenticator
Correct.
in our company.
Yeah,
This thing,
and
yeah.
one of the docu sign, right? Document sign. I think you have
Ah, yeah.
already used that, yeah. So they use the same concept here. You use your private key to sign it. So that
Yeah.
represent that you are signing it. Your key is not available, but that
Mhm.
decrypted data, when somebody do with the public key, he can say, okay, this guy has done it. Okay. So your key is secure to you. Same concept bank locker, right? In bank locker, you have one key and manager also have one key. When you both you put the key, that time only it's open, right?
Yeah.
So the bank which has that a public key you can say, because the same key has been used for all the lockers basically. He has one key only, master key they say,
Mhm.
and you guys has different private key, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Clear the concept.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that is the HTTPA and HTTPS. Okay.
Mhm.
Then you have internet and intranet. This is simple, right? Intranet means your where the picture is put. Yeah, basically, internet means web, right? So web means is going through this DNS server, and intranet
Mhm.
means your local office system, right? They can LAN.
Mhm.
LAN is the local area network, right? It is
Mhm.
a networking
Mhm.
concept, but in high level, internet means web is going outside public,
Mhm.
and intranet
Yeah.
is internal LAN cable. They have a
Mhm.
switch. There's so many things are there. Those are networking terms. Okay,
Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
application side there is more means, so when generally we develop any application, they generally ask this question: is this application for internet or intranet? Why they ask this
Yeah.
question? Because if they say this application is for intranet, then the security will be less. Why? Because this LAN itself is secure. Because already
Mhm.
networking team put this LAN so secure. Firewall will be there, so many things will be there. So you no need to bother about all those things. You have to only
Yeah.
bother about that this is the internet application. Kaushik, when login, he cannot see the data of Samant. Correct? When
Yeah.
someone log in, he cannot see the Kaushik
Mhm.
data. This small security
Yeah.
only you have to put in the internet. But when
Yeah.
you say my application is internet, then you have to think about
Mhm.
all those logic because it's open. Correct?
Mhm.
And you have to put security in all the places. Suppose you wrote Angular code, you have to put a different security mechanism for the UI because all the codes in the client machine, JavaScript,
Mhm.
it is in your web browser. They can right click, go debug everything, right? You put your Java
Mhm.
code in Java server, right? Then you have to put API
Mhm.
gateway, DOA, so many things are there. Database also you have to secure, HTTPS you have to involve, so many things are there, right? Consider.
Mhm.
So in the application development perspective, this how the two things differ: internet and
Code will be
internet.
shared, is it, with respect to backend for both application.
Code
Coding
means
wise, it is
coding functionality wise same, right? Suppose if you write a add
same.
method, it will be same here as
Yeah.
well, it will be same here, right? Now the how the add method will be called, it will be different here, it will be different here, right?
Yeah.
Because to
That
call the
one.
code method, it will go to multiple component, right? Through the
Mhm.
Angular to API get or something like that. Here maybe you will create a desktop application, Swing, Java Swing or something like that, right? Even you can create a
Mhm.
normal web page also and just open that one in HTTP because you don't need
Mhm.
HTTPS local, something like that.
Okay. Mhm.
Because
Okay.
I am
Yeah.
here only clearing your concept. When you go for coding, that time it will
Mhm.
clear more. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is your internet and internet. Okay. Then you have why we need Citrix to connect to some server. What is the context of this one? Why some connect?
Yeah, like some application only
Uh,
HTTP or HTTPS.
uh,
Some can access from directly from my browser.
right.
Some I have to log into Citrix and access that.
Okay.
So
So
that does that fall
okay.
in internet concept that I wanted to know.
Yeah, okay. So Citrix is kind of a company, right? So they create a lot of things. One is called the, as of now, everybody doing the virtualization, you know, right? So now
Uh,
the in the single server itself, they will virtualize, right? In a single server,
uh,
maybe different 10 instance they will be running it. That's what the cloud and all those things works, right? Don't think that cloud will provide a single. You can book a single machine, but generally for the cheaper cost in single machine, multiple instance will be run, right? Now in Azure or AWS, they can provide option. So when you are opening a Linux machine or Windows machine in virtualization mode, right, you can set up that, hey, I am allowing this particular box to open through RDP. RDP is the remote desktop, right? So RDP basically created by Microsoft, and it works for port 3389. So what you have to do in this Azure cloud or AWS cloud or VMware, any cloud provider, when you are booking any VM machine, virtual machines, right? You can enable that port 3389, correct? So if you have the port enabled, if you have the IP address, you can directly go here and open the RDP. The remote desktop screen will come. You will put the IP address. You will click on connect, and I think it will ask for user ID password. You're done. You go to the virtual machine server. Correct. This is how the normal RDP work without Citrix and all, and this is very less secure. Okay, people generally at Amazon and all don't allow this one, because you are opening one port means you are making the security flaws, right? Anybody can hack that particular full go, right? So for that kind of thing, the savior is the VPN, right? VPN is the private virtual private network, right? So now to connect this particular server and all, I think I put one image also. Let me open that. Yeah, VPN, correct. So this is the normal RDP. Okay, so users will be there, session will start, and you will directly connect to the RDP line, means boxes, TCP IP protocol. Okay. Then will come the VPN come into the picture. That means this network will be encrypted. So you have to go through a service provider, right? Suppose generally happen that. Suppose you work for a client, right? Client say, okay, I will not allow the code in local machine. I will give you the VM, right? In the VM, all the software will be installed, all the ID, IntelliJ, everything will be there. You have to log in and you have to start work on that. Okay. So what they will do? They will create a VPN. Okay. So in the in your company, they in your company and client, right? They both have a secure network. That's called a VPN network. Once you log into the VPN, then only this particular box will be connected. So that box is not encrypted. So this box is not available through the internet. In internet, if somebody try to access, it's blocked. It can only be accessed through this particular network where you have to log in. So that is called the VPN. Okay. And then this VDI concept is nothing but your Citrix. So in VDI, they have hypervisor, all these concepts are there, right? So Citrix again go through a VPN, but in Citrix, you have a Citrix desktop application. Here, you have to just connect to a VPN. Okay, here there are Cisco VPN connection, so many softwares are there. You connect to a VPN object, then this icon will change. It will show some different icon. That means you're connected to VPN. Then you can connect it. And for Citrix, you have Citrix softwares will be there, right? Again, it's a VPN only. It goes through encrypted connection, but that is hidden. You just open the Citrix and you can see the browser is there. Okay? So these are the different concept to connect it. Security purpose. There is no other reason. It depends how that particular VM is configured. Sometimes I just open the VM, normal RDP, secure is less. We should not do that. Generally, we create our VPN network. If the client and your company is agreed, yes, we'll create on VPN network. It will go through VPN. Otherwise, they will go to any Azure or AWS. They will do this hypervisor. They generally say they create multiple VPN and they say through Citrix or some more softwares are also there. You can connect. So those are the security connected to the server. That's the funda basically.
Okay, I understood. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that is the concept of this one.
Citrix.
That is the this one. Okay. Then we covered this. Okay. And then what we have? This one we covered. Okay. So J2 you will come at the end. Okay. So when we'll explain it. What all components are needed in client server architecture? HTTP sublet container detail flow. And then we have a sublet beans cookies session cookie. Okay, so all are related to the web one, right? Okay, so let me cover that little bit of we are sort of time. Yeah, yeah, in the Java world, right? Java world, I will start, I'll cover the web, okay? Then we'll continue in the next session. So in the Java
Yeah,
world, in
yeah.
the web, there are two concepts are there, okay? One is called the JSP. JSP stand for Java Server Pages, okay? Another concept is called the sublet. Okay, so
Okay.
JSP is Actually, the JSP and the .NET version is called the ASP, Active Server Space. So what is JSP? JSP is a mix of HTML and server-side code. Okay, it's the choice basically, that you will use the JSP or you use the servlet. Okay, in the servlets are nothing but a normal Java classes. Okay, so in the normal Java classes, you return HTML string. Okay, so mainly, have you heard about the MVC architecture, model view controller?
Yeah.
Correct. So when you
Yeah.
want to implement the model view controller in this sublet and all, JSP stand for a view. You write your HTML code in the JSP. Okay. Sublet will kind of a controller. Controller will control that which view you need to show to the user and what kind of data. Correct. So he will
Yeah.
control that one. So that's why he call a controller. And MVC, right? C for controller, V for view, M for model. Model is nothing but the data, correct? So the
Yeah.
controller get M model and put the model in the view, which is in the Java world is a JSP, okay? And then the whole HTML display to the user from the website perspective, okay?
Yeah.
This is how the JSP and supply. But I doubt like these things are used in your project or not, because nobody use this technology, because when the
Yeah.
microservice come, right, UI is all about Angular, React. Even
Yeah.
Microsoft side
Obviously.
also, Microsoft.NET has this web form, ASP gone. Nobody's using that. Only that controller part. Controller means microservice, API, web API. Nobody want to create UI in JSP and Sublet. If they want to create UI, they will create in React, Angular, Vue, or normal jQuery HTML CSS. They don't want to go. This is the
Yeah.
old way when these things was not there. Angular React was not very old, right? So before that, there was nothing. Only Java has this web version, and Microsoft has their own web version. That's how the web page was creating. If you go to the banking old technologies, they're still using JSP, they're still using Sublet, and in the Microsoft side, they are using web form. But as when is your architecture come, I think all are new technologies, right? So they have only the
Yeah.
maybe the EJBs are there, enterprise Java beans, which is nothing but the business logic, right? The web is Angular, you already have it. Okay, so from knowledge perspective, this is the web part. Okay, then the EJB come into the business logic. I think EJB you have one question also. What is the bean? Okay, so what is the bean and all. So maybe we'll in the next session we'll complete this category rest of the thing. It will be more of a J2E side, whatever question you have. We'll go for beans,
Okay.
a little bit of sublet business logic, then what is the container, then you have question how to make scalable and all those things will come, and we'll cover these things also important. What is session management, cookies management, right? What is the other way of session management is possible, right? And beans, we have session beans, entities bean, singleton bean, so many options are there. I will see how much we can cover. So in one more session we'll
Yeah.
cover the rest of the topics. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
So do
Welcome.
you have any question whatever we learned today?
No. Yeah. No. Nothing. I asked whenever I got. So yeah. No.